Story 1. The wrong order. The rain fell hard that night, drumming against the cracked pavement of the small suburban street. Alex sat in his living room, scrolling mindlessly on his phone, the bluish glow casting sharp shadows across his face. His stomach growled. He hadn't eaten all day, and cooking felt like a monumental task. With a sigh, he opened his favorite delivery app, scanned the usual takeout choices, and placed a simple order: a cheeseburger, fries, and a soda. Comfort food for a stormy night. He watched the app's tracking screen, following the little animated car icon as it snaked across digital streets toward his house. Delivery in 24 minutes, it promised. But 24 minutes later, the notification pinged. Your order has arrived. Alex blinked. No doorbell, no knock. He padded barefoot to the front door and opened it. Sitting neatly on the welcome mat was a brown paper bag, soaked with rain. He picked it up, shivering as the cold water trickled down his arm. Inside wasn't a cheeseburger, nor fries, nor soda. Instead, there was a single plastic container with a tight lid. Condensation fogged the inside. Curious and unsettled, Alex peeled it open. Inside was raw meat. Not just any meat, but something pale, glistening, veined. Too human-like, too wrong. His stomach lurched. He shoved the container away, convinced it was a grotesque prank. He pulled out his phone to report the mistake, but froze when he saw a new notification from the app. Order complete. Thank you, Alex. He hadn't entered his name when he ordered. The app already knew it. Uneasy, Alex deleted the app entirely, tossing the bag and its grotesque contents into the trash. He told himself he'd eat cereal, call it a night, and forget the whole thing. But around 2 a.m., a sharp knock rattled his front door. 3 slow, deliberate taps. He froze in bed, heart pounding. Another knock. This time heavier. Gathering courage, he crept to the peephole, expecting maybe kids pulling a prank. But what he saw made his stomach turn cold. On the porch stood a delivery driver, or something dressed like one. The figure wore the branded polo shirt of the app service, its visor pulled low. Rain dripped off its clothes, but its head wasn't right. It was too long, too narrow, the shadow beneath the cap twisting unnaturally. In its gloved hands, it held out another paper bag. Waiting, offering, Alex stumbled back from the door. His phone buzzed on the table. A new notification lit the screen. Your corrected order has arrived. Please accept. He wanted to call the police, but his phone suddenly glitched, the screen flickering with static before going black. Knock. 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 The sound now echoed through the whole house, not just the front door. Walls vibrated with it, the rhythm pounding like a heartbeat. Alex grabbed the nearest weapon he could find, a fireplace poker, and rushed to the kitchen, looking for a back exit. His breath fogged the air unnaturally, as though the house itself had grown cold. The kitchen window was wide open. He swore he had locked it earlier. On the counter sat another paper bag, already waiting, dripping rainwater onto the tile. This time, Alex didn't open it. He turned to flee, only to find the figure standing in the doorway of the kitchen, silent, still, bag in hand. The poker slipped from Alex's fingers. The figure's head lifted slightly, just enough for him to see beneath the visor. Not a face, just smooth, wet skin stretched tight like wax, and a thin slit of a mouth curling upward. It placed the bag on the floor, slowly, intentionally. Alex bolted past it, sprinting into the storm outside, barefoot, rain pelting his face. He didn't stop running until he reached the gas station 3 blocks away, chest heaving, drenched to the bone. He begged the clerk to call the police. When the officers finally returned with him to his house, the porch was empty. The kitchen window was closed and locked. No bags, no strange food, nothing. But in the fridge, neatly stacked on every shelf, were identical containers. Raw, pale meat inside, each one labeled with his name. Story 2. The driver who never left the rain came down in sheets that night, thick and heavy, distorting the city lights into a watery blur. Jenna, bone-tired after a 12-hour shift at the hospital, sat in the back seat of her rideshare, staring at the droplets chasing each other down the window. The driver hadn't spoken much since she got in, which suited her just fine. She only remembered his name because the app flashed it when the car pulled up. Victor. Victor was tall and broad-shouldered, his silhouette outlined against the dim glow of the dashboard. His hair was slicked back, but in the brief glance Jenna had caught in the rearview mirror, his face seemed tired, strangely pale. The car smelled faintly of old leather and cigarette smoke. The heater whirred softly, making the cabin feel warmer than the wet night outside. Everything about it felt almost too quiet, the kind of quiet that made Jenna aware of her own breathing. Long night. Victor's voice finally broke the silence. Yeah, Jenna answered, rubbing her eyes. Double shift. You save lives, he said softly. That must feel good. Something about the way he said it made her sit up straighter. It wasn't admiration, it sounded almost like mourning. She forced a polite laugh. Sometimes. Mostly it just feels exhausting. He nodded slowly but didn't reply again. Instead, he focused on the road, his hands gripping the wheel a little too tightly. Jenna noticed his knuckles, white, rigid, almost skeletal. The city slipped away as they drove further out. Jenna frowned when she realized Victor wasn't taking the usual route. I think you missed the turn, she said, leaning forward. Victor didn't look back. Shorter way. Trust me. Her phone buzzed in her hand. She opened the rideshare app to check the route, but the little car icon wasn't moving. The screen stayed frozen, showing them still blocks away from where they actually were. A system glitch, she thought, but unease stirred in her chest. Rain hammered against the windshield. Streetlights grew scarce, the darkness pressing in on either side of the road. Do you drive at night often? Jenna asked, more to break the silence than anything. Only at night, Victor replied. His voice had dropped, almost a whisper, as though he was speaking to himself. I don't belong in the day anymore. Jenna's stomach tightened. What's that supposed to mean? But he didn't answer. They pulled onto a road Jenna didn't recognize, lined with trees, branches swaying and groaning in the storm. The GPS on her phone showed nothing but blank space, as if the road didn't exist. Panic prickled the back of her neck. Listen, I think I'll just get out here, she started, reaching for the door handle. But it wouldn't budge. The child lock clicked into place. She hadn't touched it. Victor's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. They weren't just pale. They were cloudy, almost milky, like a film had grown over them. You shouldn't open the door yet, he said calmly. Not until the ride's finished. Her heart thudded painfully. What ride? Where are you taking me? Victor didn't answer. His face looked oddly blurred in the mirror, as though the rain outside had smeared across the glass. The car came to a stop in front of a small roadside diner, the kind that looked frozen in time. A single flickering neon sign buzzed weakly. The lot was empty. Victor turned off the engine and looked back at her fully for the first time. His skin was gray, stretched too tightly across his skull. His lips were cracked and colorless. This is where I go, he said softly. Every night. I drive and I wait and I bring people here. Jenna's throat closed. People? What are you talking about? Not many see me, he murmured. But you did. That means you're between. You're tired, empty, close to the edge. She shook her head violently. No. I'm alive. I'm fine. Let me out. Victor tilted his head, watching her with a sorrowful expression. So was I. And then Jenna realized something. The rearview mirror no longer showed her reflection. Only Victor's face stared back. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced down at the screen. It had reopened the rideshare app. But the profile photo wasn't a stock image anymore. It was a grainy picture of Victor smiling faintly. Beneath his name, a single line appeared. Deceased, 2015. The air in the car grew suffocating. Her breath came fast and shallow. She clawed at the handle, pounding on the window, screaming into the storm. But Victor didn't move. He only whispered, "You'll get used to it. We all do." The diner door creaked open, spilling dim yellow light onto the rain-slick pavement. Inside, Jenna saw shapes. People sitting at booths, heads bowed, their faces pale and blurred like Victor's. They all turned toward the car at once. Victor opened his door, rain hissing as it splattered his clothes. He walked around to her side, his shadow stretching impossibly long across the lot. The door unlocked with a soft click. Jenna froze, trembling, her hand hovering near the handle. "Time to come inside," Victor said, his voice low, gentle, final. But just as she reached for the door, headlights flared behind them. Another car screeched to a stop, its horn blaring. A driver leaned out, shouting through the rain. Victor stiffened, his pale face twisted in anger. The diner lights flickered violently, then went out. Jenna didn't think. She threw the door open and bolted into the storm, sprinting toward the other car. Behind her, she heard Victor's voice, echoing, inhuman, stretching across the rain. "You'll ride with me again, Jenna." They all do. When she turned back, the diner was gone. So was Victor's car. Only the empty road remained. She reported it, of course. The police brushed it off as exhaustion, stress, maybe even hallucination. But when she checked her rideshare history later, her stomach turned to ice. The trip had been erased. No record, no charge, no Victor. And yet, every night since then, at exactly 2:15 a.m., her phone buzzes. A notification from the rideshare app, "Your driver Victor has arrived." And somewhere outside, in the rain, Jenna swears she hears the low hum of a car engine waiting just beyond her window. Story 3. The empty bag. It was a rainy Thursday night when Daniel placed the order. Nothing special, just a late-night craving for burgers and fries after another grueling shift at the warehouse. His small apartment smelled faintly of damp concrete and detergent, and his back ached from hauling boxes all day. Ordering food was his one indulgence, his way of saying, "I survived another day, I deserve this." He scrolled through the app, the soft glow of his phone's screen the only light in the room. The rain pattered heavily against the window, drowning out the hum of the city beyond. Eventually, he settled on a burger place he'd ordered from before. Reliable, comforting. He tapped the screen, placed the order, and tossed his phone onto the couch beside him. By the time the delivery arrived, the rain had intensified, hammering against the window like 1,000 small fists. A soft buzz on his phone let him know the driver had arrived. Daniel pulled on a hoodie, padded barefoot to the door, and opened it just in time to see the retreating figure of the driver, umbrella tilted low, hurrying back toward a car idling at the curb. The paper bag sat on his doormat, darkened with rain spots, warm grease blooming at the bottom. He grabbed it quickly and shut the door, sighing with relief at the familiar weight in his hand. The smell of fried food filled his nostrils, comforting, grounding. He set the bag down on the kitchen table, flicked on the light and opened it, anticipating the burst of heat, the sight of foil-wrapped burgers, the promise of salt and ketchup. But inside, there was nothing. Nothing but silence, the hollow crinkle of paper, and something stiff and flat tucked against the side. His brow furrowed. He reached in, confused fingers brushing against glossy edges. He pulled it out. It was a Polaroid. The edges were worn. The film faded in that peculiar way only old photos carried. At first, the image made no sense. A blurry rectangle of light, a shape barely distinguishable in the darkness. But as his eyes adjusted, the recognition hit him like a knife. It was him. Him lying in bed, his bed. His blanket pulled up to his chest, his face slack in sleep. Daniel froze, the photo trembling between his fingers. He lived alone. For a long moment, the only sound was the tick of the clock on the wall and the relentless rain. His mind raced for explanations. A prank? A mistake? Some bizarre coincidence? But no, He knew his room, his sheets, the worn pattern of the curtains in the background. This was taken inside his apartment. His stomach churned, the hunger gone, replaced with a cold nausea. He checked the bag again, hoping, praying there was food after all, that this was some stupid slip-up by the restaurant. But the bag was empty. No burgers, no fries, just the Polaroid. And then, another sound, the soft click of his bedroom door. Daniel's head snapped up. His apartment was small, just a kitchen, living room, bathroom, and his bedroom down the hall. He had shut that door before the delivery arrived. He was sure of it. Slowly, carefully, he set the photo on the table and crept toward the hall. His bare feet felt cold against the floor. The rain outside grew louder, almost deafening, as if urging him not to continue, not to look. But he had to. The door was ajar now, just enough to show a sliver of darkness inside. He stood at the threshold, his breath shallow, his pulse in his ears. "Hello?" he whispered, voice shaking. No answer. He pushed the door open. The room was empty. His bed was neatly made, blankets smoothed over as though no one had slept in it for weeks. The air smelled faintly of something sweet, something wrong, like rotting fruit. He searched every corner, under the bed, inside the closet. Nothing, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He backed out slowly, shutting the door again, his hands clammy. He grabbed his phone, opened the food app, and checked the receipt. The order was marked delivered. The driver's name was listed, but when he tapped the profile, it was blank. No history, no contact number. As though the account had been erased. The lights flickered. Daniel looked back toward the kitchen table and froze. The Polaroid. It wasn't the same anymore. It now showed him standing in the kitchen holding the photo. His hoodie, his posture, the table lamp glowing behind him. It was a picture of this very moment. He dropped the phone, heart racing. His breath came in ragged gasps. He staggered backward, eyes wide, searching the apartment with frantic jerks of his head. Someone had to be here. Someone was watching him right now. And then the smell hit him again. Sweet, rotten, overpowering. The bedroom door creaked open. Daniel stumbled toward the front door, fumbling with the lock, desperate to get out. He yanked it open and froze. The paper bag was back on the doormat. He stared at it, horror pinning him to the spot. Slowly, against every ounce of reason, he reached down and opened it again. Another Polaroid. This one showed him standing at the door, staring down at the bag. He dropped it and ran. Down the stairs, out into the rain, sprinting blindly through the night. He didn't look back, didn't dare. His lungs burned. His feet slapped against wet pavement. His heart thundered in his chest. He didn't stop until he was blocks away, drenched and shaking, collapsing under the weak light of a street lamp. When he finally glanced back, gasping, he expected to see nothing but the empty street, the endless rain. But there it was. A paper bag, sitting in the middle of the road, waiting for him. Story 4. The duplicate delivery. The night began like any other in the quiet cul-de-sac. The Richardson family, Mark, his wife Claire, and their teenage daughter Emily, were slouched in the living room, half watching television while the smell of reheated leftovers lingered in the air. It was Claire who finally sighed and said what they were all thinking: "Let's just order pizza." No one objected. Mark grabbed his phone, tapped into the food delivery app, and placed an order for a large pepperoni, garlic bread, and a bottle of soda. Within seconds, the app chimed back. "Your order is confirmed. Estimated delivery, 35 minutes. They settled into the lull of waiting. Emily scrolled TikTok, Claire folded laundry, and Mark flipped channels. The ordinary domesticity of it all was comforting. The kind of moment no one remembers because nothing ever happens. At least that's how it should have been. 35 minutes later, headlights swept across their driveway. Mark stood, stretched, and opened the front door. A delivery driver in a red polo shirt and black cap stood smiling on the porch, holding a steaming pizza box and a paper bag with the rest of their order. "Delivery for Richardson?" the driver asked. His voice was polite, normal, almost rehearsed. "That's us," Mark said. He handed over some cash and tipped him extra. The driver nodded with the same smile, handed him the order, and walked back to his car. A faded silver sedan with a dent in the side door. The taillights glowed red, then vanished down the street. The family tucked into their food. Grease pooled in the center of the box, garlic butter dripped down their fingers, and for a while, the night was exactly as it should have been. Until 10 minutes later. Headlights again. A car pulling into their driveway. Mark frowned, wiping his hands with a napkin. "Maybe the neighbor?" he muttered. But no. When the knock came at the door, it was the exact same rhythm as before, 2 short knocks, pause, then 1 long. Mark opened the door and froze. There, on the porch, stood the exact same delivery driver. Same red polo, same black cap, same polite smile, same dented silver sedan idling in the driveway. "Delivery for Richardson?" the man asked again, holding out an identical pizza box and bag. Mark blinked. We already got ours." The driver tilted his head, as if confused. His smile didn't falter. "Order says Richardson. Large pepperoni, garlic bread, soda." Behind Mark, Claire's voice wavered. "Mark, shut the door." But Mark didn't. He couldn't. Something about the driver's eyes pinned him in place. They were too still, too unblinking, as if painted onto his face rather than living in them. I don't understand," Mark stammered. "We already—" The driver interrupted him, repeating in the exact same tone, the exact same cadence, word for word. "Order says Richardson. Large pepperoni, garlic bread, soda." Emily, curious, peeked around her dad's shoulder. The driver's gaze snapped to her instantly. His smile widened by a fraction. Mark's heart lurched. He grabbed the door and slammed it shut, locking the deadbolt. Through the peephole, the driver still stood there, holding the pizza out like an offering. After a full minute, he finally turned, walked back to his car, and drove off. The family sat back down, shaken, their appetites gone. "Must have been a mix-up," Claire whispered. But Emily shook her head. "Dad, he looked exactly the same. Like exactly. Even his car. That's not a mix-up." Mark tried to laugh it off. Maybe twins. Or co-workers wearing the same uniform. But even as he said it, he didn't believe it. They tried to let it go, but unease filled the house. Emily refused to eat another bite. Claire kept glancing out the window. And when the house finally quieted down, the tension didn't leave. It pressed closer, heavier, like the air itself knew something was wrong. At 11:47 p.m., headlights flared in the driveway again. This time, Claire gasped audibly. Mark's stomach dropped. Slowly, he walked to the window and peered out through the blinds. The same dented silver sedan sat in the driveway. But this time, the car wasn't empty. There were 2 drivers inside. Both of them identical. Both of them staring straight at the house, smiling through the windshield. Not a knock this time, but the shrill ding that echoed through the house like a scream. No one moved. It rang again, then again. Claire grabbed Emily's arm and pulled her toward the back of the house. Mark, trembling, crept toward the door but didn't open it. Through the peephole, the same driver stood there again, alone, holding the same pizza box, the same smile. But this time his lips moved, whispering something. Mark pressed his ear against the door. The voice was muffled but clear enough. "Let me in. Let me in. Let me in." Over and over, in a sing-song cadence, like a child chanting a rhyme. Mark staggered back. The chanting stopped. Silence fell. He risked another look through the peephole and found the driver's face pressed directly against it. One unblinking eye staring straight into his own. Mark yelped and stumbled backward. Claire screamed. Emily began to cry. Then, as suddenly as it began, The noise stopped. The headlights vanished. When Mark dared to look again, the driveway was empty. But on the porch, sitting neatly against the door, was another pizza box. Identical to the first. Inside, there was no pizza, just a Polaroid photo. It showed the three of them sitting in the living room earlier that night, eating the first pizza. But the photo captured more than just them. Behind them, in the window's reflection, the driver stood smiling, watching them from outside. Mark dropped the photo in horror. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A new notification from the delivery app. Thank you for confirming your second order. Estimated delivery, 10 minutes. The family didn't sleep that night, and when the third car pulled into the driveway at exactly midnight, headlights flaring, they didn't open the door. But from the upstairs window, Emily swore she saw 3 drivers standing side by side in the yard, each one holding a pizza box, each one smiling, each one waiting. Story 5. The cold meal the first time, Emily thought it was just a glitch. She had been working late. Her job as a graphic designer often kept her up past midnight. That night, too tired to cook, she ordered pad thai through the food delivery app. The app showed her order had just been picked up. Estimated arrival, 12 minutes. She padded into the kitchen, tidied the counter, and set out a fork. At exactly 12 minutes, the doorbell rang. When she opened the door, her food was waiting in a neat brown paper bag on the porch. The driver was already gone. Inside, though, the noodles were cold. Not lukewarm, stone cold like they had been sitting out for hours. Emily wrinkled her nose but shrugged. Maybe the restaurant had prepared it early. Maybe the driver left it in their car too long. Still annoyed, she tossed the food in the microwave and ate. The second time, it was harder to explain away. She ordered sushi from her favorite place on the app. Again, the notification pinged. Picked up. Estimated arrival, 9 minutes. 9 minutes later, a bag appeared on her porch. The sushi wasn't just cold. It was soggy, the rice clumped, the fish discolored at the edges. It looked like it had been left out all day. She checked the receipt inside the bag, printed in neat black letters. Order time, 5:08 p.m. But Emily had only placed her order at 11:42 p.m. Her stomach tightened. She thought about calling the restaurant, but something about it unsettled her more than it angered her. She tossed the bag into the trash. By the 4th delivery, her unease had become dread. Every order came the same way, arriving exactly on time, but the food inside was ice cold, spoiled, dead. One night it was a burger, its lettuce wilted, the bun stiff like cardboard. Another night it was soup, congealed, its surface a gelatinous sheet. And always, the timestamp on the receipt claimed the order had been placed hours before she touched the app. Emily tried switching restaurants, even uninstalling and reinstalling the app. Nothing changed. Her friends laughed it off when she told them. Maybe it's your area, her friend Rachel suggested. Maybe the drivers are lazy, or you've got a ghost in your phone, joked another. Emily didn't laugh. One night, determined to catch the delivery driver in the act, she set up her phone by the window overlooking the porch. She ordered a simple sandwich. The app said it was picked up at 12:07 a.m., arriving in 10 minutes. At 12:17, right on schedule, the bag appeared. Emily frowned. She had been watching the whole time. No car had pulled up. No footsteps on the gravel. Just nothing. One moment the porch was bare. The next moment the paper bag sat there waiting, as though it had been placed from inside the shadows. Her heart raced. She grabbed the bag with trembling hands. Inside, the sandwich was stiff, the lettuce brown, the bread dry and curling at the edges. She checked the receipt. Order time, 3:15 p.m. Hours before, again. But this time there was something new. Beneath the receipt, tucked carefully in the bag, was a folded piece of paper. No branding, no markings. Just a short message scrawled in uneven handwriting. Stop reordering. Eat what you're given. Emily's hands shook so violently she nearly dropped it. That night she didn't eat. She didn't sleep either. She sat up in bed with every light on, her phone clutched in her hands, staring at the app. She didn't know what she was waiting for. An explanation? A notification? Something? At 3 a.m., her phone buzzed. A new order confirmation appeared. She hadn't placed it. Her mouth went dry. The order read, "Meal for Emily. Status, picked up." Her hands hovered over the screen. She tried to cancel it, but the button didn't work. The app just showed the progress bar slowly creeping forward. Estimated arrival, 7 minutes. Emily's breath came fast. She backed away from the phone, her pulse pounding in her ears. Her eyes flicked toward the window, the porch outside. Estimated arrival, 3 minutes. Her phone buzzed again. A message appeared in the app's chat. "Hungry yet?" Emily stumbled backward, her chest heaving. The doorbell rang. The sound cut through the silent house like a blade. She froze. Slowly, trembling, she crept to the window. The bag was there, sitting neatly on the porch. But this time, the bag was moving. Something inside it shifted, pressing against the paper, straining like it wanted out. Emily's scream stuck in her throat. She ran to her bedroom and slammed the door, locking it. She grabbed her phone, but the app wouldn't close. The screen glowed with one final message: "Don't let it get cold." The knocking started a few minutes later. Soft, deliberate raps on her bedroom door. She never ordered food again, but sometimes at night, she still hears the doorbell ring. Story 6. The dark kitchen. The app was simple. Scroll, click, pay, eat. That was the routine for Daniel Hart, a man who had grown so accustomed to late-night takeout that the glowing icons of fast food chains were more familiar to him than the names of his neighbors. He lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town, his life confined to the blue glow of a computer monitor, the flicker of old horror movies on the TV, and the smell of reheated food. Cooking was something he hadn't done in years. Ordering was faster, cleaner, easier. That night, it was close to midnight when his stomach rumbled. He opened the delivery app, expecting to see the usual suspects: pizza chains, burger places, maybe a taco joint still open. But something new caught his eye. A listing at the top of the screen, the Ember Diner. The name didn't ring a bell. Daniel knew this part of town well, and no diner by that name existed, or at least not one he'd ever seen. The logo was strange too. A faded, sepia-toned picture of a building that looked old, like it had been scorched in a fire long ago. He almost scrolled past it, but hunger gnawed at him. Curious, he tapped. The menu was shockingly normal. Burgers, fries, steak, chicken sandwiches, milkshakes. The prices were cheaper than average, which made him wonder if it was some ghost kitchen. One of those places that cooked out of another restaurant's back room just for app orders. With a shrug, he ordered a cheeseburger and fries. The app said the food would arrive in 20 minutes. The driver showed up exactly on time. Daniel grabbed the brown paper bag, noticing the grease spots bleeding through, and muttered a quick thanks before closing the door. Something about the driver had unsettled him, though. He couldn't put his finger on it. The man hadn't said a word, hadn't even smiled, just handed the bag over with wide, unblinking eyes before walking briskly back to his car. Daniel brushed it off. Strange people worked strange hours. Inside, the food was hot, too hot. When he unwrapped the burger, steam rose as though it had just left a grill. The fries practically burned his fingers. Odd, considering the driver hadn't carried any insulated bag, just the thin paper one. But Daniel was too hungry to care. He devoured it, grease dripping down his chin, and by the time he finished, he was already planning to order again tomorrow. The next day, on his way to work, he mentioned the Ember Diner to his coworker, Jill. "Never heard of it," she said, frowning. "Where's it at?" Daniel opened the app and pointed out the address. Jill gave him a strange look. "Daniel, that's not possible. That place burned down years ago. My uncle used to take me there as a kid. Total loss. They never rebuilt." Daniel laughed awkwardly. Maybe they did and just didn't advertise? But her expression didn't soften. No, I drive past there all the time. It's just an empty, blackened husk. Daniel's stomach churned. He laughed again, though it felt hollow. Weird. Maybe it's some virtual kitchen thing. He tried not to think about it. That night, he swore he wouldn't order from the Ember Diner again. But around midnight, his phone buzzed. A new notification. Your order from the Ember Diner is on the way. ETA, 15 minutes. Daniel froze. He hadn't ordered anything. He double-checked the app, his payment history, everything. There was no record of an order being placed. And yet, the driver icon was already moving toward his building. His doorbell rang exactly 15 minutes later. The same driver stood outside. The same unblinking stare. The same grease-stained paper bag. Daniel's voice trembled. I didn't order this. The driver said nothing. Just extended the bag. Daniel didn't take it. He backed away slowly, shaking his head. The driver finally lowered the bag onto the welcome mat, then turned and walked away without a sound. The car's taillights vanished into the night. Daniel stared at the bag. Part of him wanted to throw it away without looking inside. But hunger and curiosity got the better of him. Inside was another cheeseburger and fries. Hot, fresh, perfectly cooked. His stomach growled. He ate. The deliveries didn't stop. Every night, always around midnight, a fresh order from the Ember Diner arrived. Daniel never placed them. He even deleted the app, but somehow the notifications still came through. Always the same driver, always the same unblinking stare, and always the food. At first, Daniel resisted. He tossed the bags untouched into the trash. But the smell, the smell would fill his apartment. Rich, smoky meat, perfectly seasoned fries, warm bread. It would drive him mad until finally he caved, tearing into the meals like a starving animal. And he noticed something else. The more he ate, the harder it became to stop. His appetite was insatiable. He stopped buying groceries, stopped cooking altogether. The only thing that satisfied him was the Ember Diner's food. But with every meal he felt weaker. His skin grew pale. His body felt heavy. His dreams were filled with fire, with the smell of smoke, with screams echoing through scorched walls. He would wake in a cold sweat, the taste of ash still on his tongue. One night, unable to take it anymore, Daniel decided to confront the source. He drove to the address listed on the app. Jill had been right. The building was a ruin. Charred beams jutted up like broken teeth. Windows were boarded, blackened. The sign, still faintly visible above the wreckage, read, "The Ember Diner." But as Daniel sat in his car, staring, the smell hit him. Faint, flickering light, glowing from within the burned-out husk. Daniel's heart pounded. Against every instinct, he stepped out of the car. The smell grew stronger, the glow brighter. He approached the front door, which hung crookedly on melted hinges. He pushed it open. The inside was gutted, charred booths, broken tables, a collapsed ceiling. But in the very center, impossibly untouched, was a counter. And behind it, a grill. The grill was on. Grease popped and sizzled as a hand flipped a patty. The cook turned slowly, and Daniel saw the driver. The same wide, unblinking eyes, the same blank stare. Only now the driver's face was burned. Melted flesh, blackened skin, one eye drooping like wax. The cook slid a plate across the counter. A cheeseburger and fries. Daniel's stomach growled violently, doubling him over with hunger. He tried to resist, but his body moved on its own. He staggered forward, hands trembling, and reached for the plate. The cook's cracked lips parted. "Welcome back," he rasped. The next morning, Jill tried to call Daniel. He didn't answer. Neither did he show up for work. When the landlord finally checked on him days later, the apartment was empty. His phone was on the counter, still buzzing with notifications. Your order from the Ember Diner has been delivered. On the table sat a brown paper bag. Inside was a cheeseburger and fries. Still hot, and still waiting. Story 7. The driver's face. It started like any other night. Olivia had just finished another 12-hour shift at the hospital. She was too tired to cook, so she scrolled through her food delivery app, ordered her usual pad thai, and collapsed onto the couch. Her smart doorbell chimed 20 minutes later. She groaned, dragged herself off the couch, and opened the app's live feed to confirm the drop-off before bothering to stand. That was when she noticed it. The driver was there on the screen, black baseball cap, gray jacket, black pants. The plastic delivery bag swung lazily in their hand. Everything about the scene was clear. The porch light shining down, the wind rustling the trees, the faint hum of passing traffic. Everything except the driver's face. It wasn't pixelated like bad connection, nor shadowed. It was blurred, warped, as if the camera couldn't process it. Olivia blinked. She leaned closer to the screen, squinting, rubbing her tired eyes. But no matter how long she stared, the driver's face remained a swirling patch of static, a smear of distortion in an otherwise crisp recording. The driver set the food down and walked away. Olivia shook off the unease. Probably just a camera glitch, she thought. Too tired to care, she grabbed the food and went to bed. The next morning, curiosity tugged at her. She reopened the app and replayed the delivery footage. The bag, the jacket, the porch light, everything was normal, except for the face. Still blurred, still unreadable. Something about it nagged at her. She opened older clips, scrolling through past deliveries. Chinese takeout from last Friday. Pizza from last week. Groceries from 2 weeks before. Her stomach dropped. Every single driver, no matter the time, no matter the company, had the same blur. Sometimes the distortion looked like a smudge of fog, other times like static. But never, not once, did the camera capture a face. That night, she tried to brush it off. Stress, overwork, a broken camera. She ordered food again, daring herself to keep the live feed open the whole time. When the driver arrived, her breath caught in her throat. The same figure, the same jacket, the same blurred face. This time, though, something was different. The driver didn't leave immediately after setting the food down. Instead, they lingered on the porch, facing the door. Their face, still smudged, seemed to twitch in impossible ways, stretching, contracting, as though something underneath the blur was trying to push through. They didn't move for 30 seconds. Then, without warning, the feed cut to black. Her phone screen went dead. Her heart slammed in her chest. She bolted to the door, yanked it open. The food was there, but the porch was empty. The next day at work, she told her friend Marcus about it. He laughed it off, suggesting hackers or a faulty camera. But when she showed him the footage, his smile faded. "That's not compression," he muttered, rewinding, pausing on the warped patch where the face should be. "That's deliberate." "Deliberate how?" she asked. "Like the camera knows what it's looking at and won't show it to you." Olivia's skin prickled. That night, she refused to order delivery. She microwaved leftovers and avoided looking at the doorbell feed. But around midnight, her phone buzzed. A notification. Motion detected. Front door. Her stomach tightened. She hadn't ordered anything. She hadn't even gone near the porch. She opened the feed with trembling fingers. The figure was there again. Standing motionless at her door. The same jacket. The same blurred face. This time, the figure raised its hand. Slowly, deliberately, and pressed it against the doorbell camera. The screen filled with distortion, white noise tearing across the image. Then it went black. By morning, she'd convinced herself it was a dream, sleep deprivation, stress. She deleted the app, disabled notifications, and told herself she was being paranoid. But the footage saved automatically to the cloud. When she checked it one last time out of morbid curiosity, she froze. The clip showed the figure pressing its hand against the camera. But just before the feed cut, the blur flickered. For a single split-second frame, she saw something beneath the distortion. It wasn't a face. It was a gaping black void, lined with jagged teeth. She didn't order delivery again. She cooked, she shopped in person, she ignored her phone. But the visits didn't stop. Every few nights, her doorbell camera buzzed with notifications. Sometimes the figure stood at the edge of the porch. Sometimes in the driveway. Sometimes by the window. Always with that blurred, impossible face. She stopped checking the feed. She couldn't bear it. Then one night, she woke to a faint scratching sound. It was coming from inside the house. Her breath caught. She reached for her phone with shaking hands. No notification. No feed. Just silence. Until she realized the sound was coming from her bedroom door. Slow, deliberate scratching. Like fingernails dragging along wood. Her phone buzzed. A notification. Motion detected. Bedroom. Her blood turned to ice. She didn't have a camera in the bedroom, and yet the notification was real. She opened it without thinking. The screen showed her own room, her bed, her frozen body clutching the phone. And standing right beside her, the driver, that same gray jacket, that same blurred, impossible face. But this time there was no bag of food in its hand. Only a set of long, black fingers reaching toward her. Story 8. The last delivery, the shift had gone later than expected. Theo, a delivery driver for one of the countless food apps, had just wrapped up what he thought would be his last order of the night. The roads were empty, the air heavy with that strange, too quiet stillness that often settles over suburban neighborhoods past midnight. He could already picture himself at home, shoes off, microwaving leftover noodles, zoning out in front of a late-night movie. But then the notification chimed. One last order. The payout was decent, higher than usual for the distance. The note on the order read, "Please deliver to the side door and bring the food inside. Don't leave it outside." Theo frowned. That was against policy. They drilled it into drivers constantly. Never go inside the customer's home. Still, he figured he'd just drop it by the side door and ignore the note. It wasn't worth the risk. The drive took him deeper into the outskirts of town, down streets where the streetlights flickered like they hadn't been maintained in years. The houses grew farther apart, swallowed by trees, their windows black and lifeless. Finally, his GPS announced the address. A long, winding driveway that disappeared into the woods. Theo hesitated, but money was money. He pulled up the gravel drive slowly, tires crunching on loose stones. At the end sat an old Victorian-style house. Its windows reflected nothing, as though the glass had gone opaque with age. The porch light burned a dim, yellow glow, casting long shadows that seemed to shiver even though the night air was perfectly still. Theo stepped out of the car, bag in hand. The house looked wrong. The paint peeled like scabbed skin, and the trees pressed too close, their branches scratching at the siding. He glanced back at his phone. The note repeated, "Bring it inside. Do not leave it outside." His chest tightened. He told himself he'd just set it by the side door and leave. But then he heard it. The creak of a floorboard inside. Someone was waiting. Theo walked up the porch steps, each one groaning under his weight. He knocked once, half expecting no answer. Instead, the door opened almost instantly. A woman stood there. She was pale, unnaturally so, and her smile looked strained, stretched too wide. Her eyes were dark, glistening in the porch light as though reflecting something far away. She didn't greet him, didn't even glance at the bag. Instead, she whispered, "You have to come inside." Theo's throat went dry. He forced a nervous laugh. "I'm sorry, miss, I can't. Policy says I can't." Her hand shot out, gripping the edge of the bag with startling strength. "You have to bring it inside," she repeated, more forceful now. "Please." Theo froze. His instinct screamed at him to leave. Just set the bag down and walk away. But something about the way she looked at him made his limbs heavy. his body sluggish, as though wading through thick water. Against his better judgment, he stepped inside. The air changed instantly. It was freezing, damp, smelling faintly of mildew and something metallic, like rust or old blood. The hallway stretched long and narrow, lined with peeling wallpaper. The woman shut the door behind him with a quiet click. "Where do you want me to put this?" Theo asked, his voice shaky. "Downstairs," she said. Her smile widened, showing teeth that looked too sharp in the dim light. Theo's stomach turned. He clutched the bag tighter, hoping she didn't notice his trembling hands. "I really should just leave it here." Her eyes flashed with something he couldn't name. "Downstairs," she repeated. Then she moved aside, pointing to a door at the end of the hallway. Theo forced himself forward, heart thundering in his chest. The floorboards groaned under his steps, and he swore he heard whispers threading through the house, low and hushed, coming from behind the walls. He reached the door, hesitated, then opened it. Stairs spiraled down into darkness. A breath of cold air rushed up to meet him, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of rot. He turned to protest, to tell her this was insane, but the woman was gone. The hallway behind him was empty. Theo's panic spiked. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Desperate, he pulled it out. A notification glowed across the screen. Delivery completed. Thank you, but he hadn't marked it complete. And the bag in his hand felt lighter. Too light. He looked down. It was empty. Theo staggered back, his breath quickening. From below, in the blackness of the basement, came the sound of chewing. Slow, wet, animalistic. Something was down there. He bolted for the front door, but when he yanked it open, his car was gone. The driveway stretched out into endless forest, no sign of the gravel path he had driven up. The house groaned around him, alive somehow. The walls seemed to pulse, the wallpaper shifting like skin crawling with veins. He could hear footsteps now, multiple pairs, padding softly across the floor above him, circling. Theo tried every door, every window, all locked. No escape. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text message from an unknown number. The words sent ice down his spine. "Your shift is over. Stay." Theo backed into the hallway, shaking, whispering to himself that this wasn't real, that he just needed to wake up. But then he heard it, the basement door creaking open. The chewing had stopped, and something was coming up the stairs. He ran, but the lights went out all at once, plunging the house into suffocating blackness. Only the sound of footsteps grew louder, closer, climbing each stair with deliberate, dragging weight. Theo screamed, pounding on the door, begging for someone, anyone, to hear him. But outside, the woods swallowed his cries. By morning, only his car was found, parked neatly at the end of the driveway, keys still in the ignition. The food bag lay on the passenger seat, spotless, as if it had never been touched. But Theo was gone, and when the next driver came through the area, their app pinged with a new request. Same house, same instructions. Please bring it inside. Same house, same instructions. Please bring it inside. Same house, same instructions. Please bring it inside.